I'm fine.
Okay.
You better, like, go move.
And should we have her step out a little bit, or
We can move the dog.
we don't want to start with Linda, so we can start where I go into her chart and her. Whatever you want. Okay? You want to start with this thing? You know where we are? You want to move?
That's comfortable.
Okay, great. You ready?
Good right there?
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Linda, tell me who you are and what this day is for you.
Well, my name is Linda Rose, Linda Mortimer Rose, and I'm a birth parent from 1966, and today is the end of a very, very long journey. Today's the day I get to meet my daughter. I haven't seen her since she was 6 days old, when she was taken from me, and I was forced to give her up in 1966, and that's, I guess, how it was then. And I've been on a journey for 31 years, no matter what else was normal in my life, to find my daughter, to find Chris and Mai's child. And for 31 years, it has absolutely been like having your heart ripped out of your chest to walk around unaccompanied on the earth. And today, my daughter is coming off a plane, and that ends 31 years of looking at little girls' hands to see if that's my daughter, of wondering, will I ever find her, and trying to stay one step ahead of accepting the fact I would never see her again. And today I see her, and I see my granddaughter, and I see my smile and my mother's smile, and I see that there's something bigger than crisis, there's something bigger than heartache, and that's how wonderful the other side of an answered prayer is. And that's what's happening today. And as soon as I can keep the makeup on my face and curl my hair and be with all the loving friends that have supported me throughout my whole life, that have known about her, and I will get to the airport and I will lay hands on my daughter. And I'm in Tennessee. I've been here for 25 years, and this is my home. This is the home God gave me. And this is where she's coming. So that's it. Okie doke. Here we go.
Right, we can walk back to the sunroom then.
Thank you for being quiet. Okay, here we come. Let's film this one. Keep going. Keep going. Not a moment, not a second. So when you ask me how this affects you, no matter what else is normal, how can it not affect you? How can you not wake up in the morning and make coffee and this and that? And where is she? See, that's what I meant when I said, how dare you say now come in when the hard times are over? I'd have given the world if he thought that was constantly there. I mean, I would sit there and go, I know there's times that's just a little girl growing up. You know yourself, there's times that you're in bed going, you know, I'm scared, I'm confused, I'm an adolescent, I'm messed up, I'm whatever I am, you know, and how bad you want to be there. But I have huge. This is just huge. This is, and to have Chris say the first thing he says, our babies are in the air. I mean, this is whole. This is our child. This comes from everything that was. That's what Jennifer said when she writes this screenplay. You know, and she did. She had a wonderful idea. She said, I'm going to write this, and she says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write Chris's story, my dad's story, right, and all of this, and the character in him is just the word tills and.
Okay. So take me back to the beginning. This child was a product of what?
If I slip and call her Kathy, that's because what I've called her in my heart for all these years, but it's Jennifer. Anyway, my daughter is a product of a first love, of all that was good in some very, very hard times. When I was younger, a lot younger, a teenager, I met Chris. Met him at Teen Club, and I just really couldn't believe this. He was walking across and talking to me. But anyway, so we met, and he walked me home that night and played his harmonica, and sat on the porch and talked, and eventually moved just a couple houses down. And we were together for like 2 years, dating and, you know, phone calling and meeting in the street and everything, you know. And like I said, he was what was all calm and peaceful and just wonderful in my very turbulent young life, and I know I was that to him. You know, I used to love listening to plays of guitar music and, you know, everything. And one thing led to another, and, you know, the inevitable happened, and we were pregnant. And back in our young mind, and when I think back about my young thoughts, I just knew, well, it was all going to be okay, you know.
Keep going.
Okay, anyway, it was just all going to be okay. Didn't know if we were going to run away and join a circus or go live in the woods or whatever, but it was all going to be okay. And the only scary part was his parents and my dad, you know, them finding out. Everybody else knew. Oh, Chris and Linda, they're going to have a baby. And his sister Jenny was like, I'm going to be an aunt, you know. But and when the parents found out, it went like burning rice paper. Things happened quickly and terribly and totally misconstrued. You know, in his parents' eyes, I was the bad girl. I led him astray. And in my father's eyes, he was the bad boy. He's leading me astray. And meanwhile, nobody got it. You know, that, because I'd lost my mom when I was 15, right when I met Chris, and he was there for me. And nobody got it, that it's just young, innocent love. And no, my daughter wasn't the product of anything bad. You know, she was all that was good. And when things happened very quickly, it was very difficult. I got sent away to an unwed mother's home, you know, because back then you were called a bad girl, and your children were called illegitimate and bastards, and it happened quickly. I got shipped off no matter what amount of fussing or screaming I did, and it's hard for people nowadays to understand that, I guess they call it old school. You didn't talk back. You didn't change your expression. You just didn't. Children were to be seen and not heard. You didn't have a say. Your parents ruled totally, legally, everything over you until you're 18. So, wish I got taken and locked up. And I didn't know what happened to Chris. And it wasn't until now, you know, that Chris didn't know what happened to us. He didn't know where I'd gone. He thought my dad had shipped me to my grandfather's. He didn't know anything. But so there I was, and I was away from everything I knew that was good. All my friends in the neighborhood that were my friends, the original Peanut characters, you know, parenting each other with no parents seemingly, you know. And I was scared, and I was young, and I didn't know what was going on. And you weren't allowed out, you know, you were locked in. And it was sort of a cold place. You didn't know each other's last names. Of course, I knew my roommate's name. You got very close. And there it was for 4 months. And me and my baby. And in my mind, I was going home. No matter what it took, my child and I were going home. And I was daydreaming about, well, I'll make my brother Michael's room into a nursery, and I can figure out how to finish school and maybe work part-time at Sears or whatever it took, you know. And that's all I was consumed with, was that thought, you know. And I couldn't think about Chris at that point. It's not like, oh, well. It's like, that hurt also. When things hurt, there's not a measure on it. And I couldn't concentrate on what was I going to do with my baby and think about the loss of Chris, too. And the grief about losing my mom was still overwhelming. And my brother wasn't there, and my sister wasn't there. She was just 11. I didn't see my dad. Anyway, the morning I went into labor, I didn't even know what that was. And I think back at how young I was. My water broke. I didn't know what that was. And my roommate, Lorraine, was like, here it comes, you know, like, what comes, you know? And back then, they took you to a mother's door, which was this ominous door in the building that no one went through unless your pains were 5 minutes apart or your water broke. But they don't tell you what that is. And Lorraine's dragging me to the door with your bag that's always packed. And I just thought Lorraine was going with me, that I'd have somebody. But no, the door opens and you're by yourself again. And this nurse, I'll never forget this, she smelled like gin. Said, okay, yeah, your water broke. And she prepped me, and everything scared me. I was scared to death. And I got handed a $5 bill and put in a taxi cab on a loading dock and sent over the bridge in D.C. to a hospital where I was in labor from 7:30 that morning till 11:15 that night, when out came this huge, beautiful child. My daughter was 11 pounds, 8 ounces. She's probably going to kill me. The world now knows, yes, Jennifer, you were 11 pounds, 8 ounces. Which that was information she never had, you know. And within 30 minutes, I was back in the cabin, back there, without her. And she came the next morning to the nursery. And the other part is Lorraine went into labor 30 minutes after me, so she was there. I heard her hollering in the other room, and I know this sounds so odd, but to know that, Lorraine's here and she's having her baby, and she had the most beautiful child, Faith Renee. But anyway, Faith Renee and Kathy came back, you know, and when we got to see them, they were all papoosed up, just tightly bound, right? And so here's this little African-American child with hair like silk, and here's Kathy, you know, just pale and strawberry blonde hair and crystal blue eyes that were Chris's eyes, the blue eyes with the black. And anyway, and this nurse said, "Now leave them wrapped up." And we were like, oh yeah. Boom. And when I opened my daughter's hands, and they were my hands, and she had the crooked little fingers, and she was just perfect from head to toe, and she's mine. Just the hands was something I held on to this day. Anyway, so I was with my daughter. I had her christened when she was 4 days old. My sister was 11, and some of my friends gathered gas money to come down because I had talked the pastor into having her christened. No, she's going to be christened. And at that time, I didn't know what that was, but that was important. Moms do that. And my sister, like, whooshes out this little white dress, and she goes, "I bought this for my niece." And so we had a Peanuts character christening at the chapel at the home. And the rain somehow had had somebody sneak in a camera. And thank God, because I've also carried with me all this time 4 pictures, well, 3. Just 3 pictures of her in that little dress, you know. And I got to feed her. I got to rock her at night. You know, this is my child, and we're going home. With absolutely no thought about what I was doing, but that's where we were going. And then came day 6. And I was in my room with my daughter, and this lady came in the room and took my daughter. And not answering me. What are you doing? Where are you going? And shut the door. And I couldn't get out. And I just remember from that moment on, my life's not been the same. And I remember jumping, just jumping and jumping and jumping and screaming and hollering. And I finally just took the radio and just ripped it on loud because I didn't even want to feel at that moment. And I don't remember a lot after that, other than my brother picking me up and telling me from this day forward we're not talking about this. And that wasn't his thing, that was just a message from my father. And I think at right that moment, I know this sort of sounds like a trite statement, but right that moment a hippie was born. You know, because I knew defiantly that no. She doesn't deserve silence. She doesn't deserve name. She deserves me. She deserves what I have to give her. This, my being, my heart, this is my child, my blood, my flesh, and how dare you, enough is enough. And that was it. And I don't remember a lot about going home. I don't remember a lot about being home, just numb or whatever. And then I remember signing those damn papers. Just almost 6 months later. And I was forced to do so. And it wasn't too much after that. I mean, I even tried bargaining about, well, what if I get married? Can I have my baby? If I get married, will you go get her? Will you go get my baby? You know? And that was a 5-week insanity trip. But anyway, I left. I just left home, you know, and crashed and burned through the 60s. You know, just tolerated nothing. Go save the whales, feed the children in Biafra, Bangladesh. I mean, just everything. You're open, if you're already, and I think the world needs those people, if you're already an open sore, you know, you can be an open sore for those that can't speak out. And that was where I went, you know. But forever, up until March 10th of this year, I'd be on the street or I'd be wherever I went, because I did live a productive life, so no matter what else is good in my life, there's always this hole. I would always look at little girls' hands. If there was a baby in a buggy that was her age, I'd want to see their hands. I can remember one time in Washington, D.C., there was a lady, had a baby in a stroller, a little girl, and I knew that was about the right age. But the baby had mittens on. This is how obsessive it got at times. And I was trying to figure out how to strike up a conversation with this lady and then get the mittens off her child's hands, you know, and it would get in just to see, and it would be constant. It would just be constant, and it was just looking for those hands. And through the years, like no matter what, whether in college and married, and I know how that feels. I mean, I'm an adopted parent also, you know, my son, you know, and I have a huge dual perspective on this, you know. God. but it's all going to be okay, you know. Trying to stay ahead of what I was trying to do, besides the ultimate goal of where is my daughter. Right, and I was counting on I was counting on wherever she was and whatever family she was in, whoever her parents were, that hopefully for the times they were good people. They were solid people and loving people. You know, I was counting on that. You know, but, you know, I finally, to pull up out of the 60s, I can remember, because I'd always danced my whole life. I finally decided, well, I got to pull myself up, you know, and the struggle was enormous, you know, but I finally got back in dancing and was on a dance team for a while, and then met my future husband and moved to Tennessee, and we lost 2 children. So Jennifer's the only birth child I've ever had. Worked, was with the airlines, decided, well, now what am I going to do after the airlines goes down and the marriage went down and all this stuff? Well, so I went to college, and what else? Social work. But it's always there. Every term paper I wrote, every research paper I went, always was like, well, let's research adoption. Let's research the adoption triad. Because I'm over here watching my son going through all this and identifying with my daughter somewhere doing all this, and I've always been close to this issue. It's raw, you know. It's just, there it is. It's just there. Even when my other job, because I work 2 jobs, I have like a little contract thing with Pellissippi State College at the library, and everybody that knows me knows it's like she's always looking for Kathy. You know, there I was. Once somebody taught me how to play around on the internet. It was like, oh, look, there's all these registries and there's all these people, and it would break your heart when you can scroll and on the computer you have an initial. You have, I'm a BM, a birth mother, when there's an adoptee, an A. It would scroll endlessly with all these A's looking for the birth mothers, and that just, like, my God, they do look, because I never knew if she knew. I never knew if she would ever look. I never knew what she thought of herself, you know. But it's just been a constant. And through the years I would send letters to Maryland, just going, if anything ever changes, could you help me find my daughter? You know, I don't want to intrude, but can I have something? And I would write. I can't even tell you how many letters in my heart and my mind I would write, and I had absolutely nowhere to send them but to God. You know, and to say I wasn't angry at God, you know, like, well, like, why do you let this stuff happen, you know? And poetry and art, and you had asked me, well, it's such a simple question, but the answer is so huge. How does this affect your life? It's not a pieces part thing. It's a whole part, and it's there daily. It's there when you're making coffee. It's there when you see your son struggling, and when I'm answering my son, I am also answering my daughter. When I am dealing with the transitional issue with my son, I'm dealing with one with my daughter, you know. Sissy. Anyway, letters, and anything that they give you the liberty to do, which is minimal in the adoption triad. Like, sure, send a letter, we'll stick it somewhere, you know, but in the early 80s, I found out that I could send a waiver, a confidentiality waiver from my side of this. It's very clear-cut. There's my side of the file, there's her side of the file. I could send what I wanted to my side. Well, that was something. So I sent. In 1990, when I was in New Jersey, when the airline was finally wrapped up, my cousin helped me send an official waiver down of confidentiality again, right? And I was always sending change of addresses. Well, the miracle started unfolding. Like, before my birthday last year in October, it had dawned on me that, you know, Luke and I had been here for 2 years in the little house, and I needed to send another daggum change address. So I called long distance up in Maryland to get the address in Hyattsville that I needed to send this to. And they had moved for some reason, and so 5 frustrating phone calls later just to get an address, there was finally this wonderful voice on the other end of the phone, Mr. Waldo. It's like an angel. It was like hearing an angel. And he just doesn't know what simple words in my heart was like an ancient door going, "Urgh," that I never thought was going to move, that was never going to open. He just said, in a lovely accent that I can't even mimic right now, "Why, Miss Rose, how long has it been since you've contacted this office?" And I said, "Well, I guess 90. "Oh, things have changed since then." Your heart jumps. What do you mean? No. He said, "Well, we're trying to reunite birth families, you know." And I'm sitting in the living room chair, right? I'm like, I can't believe this. And when you're in your 40s, you doubt the things you remember, you know. So I'm like, maybe I need to ask him, did I hear this right? And he told me, well, you just need to file another confidentiality release, and then they do what they can, and they go find her. And they see if this is something she wants to, and they just do this. Just so easy, just do. And I said, did I hear this correctly? And my heart, I couldn't hear from my heart pounding in my head. And I got off the phone, and my son, with the strength of all 19-year-old sons, it was wonderful. He just held on to me, and he says, "What's wrong, Mom?" And I told him. And he just smiled so big, you know, because he's always wanted to meet his sister. He knows, you know. And he held on to me, and he said, "Mom, it's going to be okay. It's okay." He says, "Are you afraid Kathy's going to say no?" And at that moment, I said, "No. I am scared to death she's going to say yes. It's an unknown." I said, for all these years, I'd worked so hard to have a sincere acceptance of no, to stay ahead of that, because I never had that. Everyone's telling me no. They told me no in 1966, but I never could have the peace of acceptance, and I never could emotionally allow myself to ever even fantasize about a yes. And now someone's saying yes, you know. Well, I was on the phone all day that day. Guess what? Guess what? There's this much hope. There's this much. The door came open, you know. And I didn't stop. I didn't stop at all. I never gave up. It was like, no, you know. And then I talked to a lady, Donna Poole, who was the lady who took the complete file and went searching and found out if she wanted a reunion and all this. And I never did want to interfere. It was important to me that her life not get bulldozed. You don't know if the children know. And if they don't know, I wouldn't want to get a mimeograph letter that said, "Oh, look, I'm not even who I, you know." No. So I never heard anything else, and that's you know, very, very hard, you know, so.
Let's pause right here because we have to change the.
Oh, I don't care. Okay. Okay, sorry. There was a teenager in the bathroom.
Oh. Always.
Constant.
Yeah.
In everything I did. Not to say you're not living a functional life. You know, you're a PTA member, you're a mom, you're a wife, you're, you know, working with the Chamber of Commerce, you're flying, you're, you know, in school. So there was this, you're almost like an alien. I'm the only, you know, inside of me, there was like this other part of me that was like, okay, we'll take advantage of this. You're on the airline, let's look at more hands. Let's talk to more people. Let's engage young women in conversations and go, oh, where are you from? You know, you have access to a computer. You are constantly, you know, looking at new articles about the adoption triad and laws and people, and it's a constant search. It's never stopped. So even though outside of you there's all this functional things going on, the other you, Jennifer's mom, Kathy's mom, is looking through these eyes, you know, looking for those hands, looking for the law to change, looking for, just looking. It's like walking around in the darkness with a candle inside of yourself going, well, where is my heart? Where is she? You know, is she okay? Is she alive? Is she, God, is she now a princess of a third world nation? You know, is she a senator? Is she a singer? Is she, she's the best little cook in Texas, you know? Is she happy? Is she crying tonight? Is she sad? Is she anything, you know? But that's that constant. And I've had the freedom in the life I've carved out for myself that she was never a secret to anybody that sincerely loved me or met me. You know, so I've had total freedom to allow her to be in my life in anything from poetry to artwork to walking across the stage at graduation. She was always with me. And in my left brain thinking, I felt somewhere I hoped she knew that. You know, yeah, you're here today with me and I'm catching this fish, you know. She's in my son's life. That's my sister Kathy. I'm going to meet her someday, you know. But behind that, it was laborious. It was hard. It was exhausting emotionally. It paid its toll on no matter else what was going on. That one thing of just that singular pain, you know, and my questions to God. And I figure I have that right. You know, I'm a child. I believe in God. He is my Father. He is my Savior. He is my guide, my counselor. So I have that right to stand before him and go, okay, now wait 1 minute. I'm going to kick dust about this one, and can you explain this to me? And at times it gets overwhelming, God, when will this stop? And so no matter what else is right in your life, it amazed me last October on my birthday that got up to where it almost overtook me. And I always pray on this one road coming home because I work with senior citizens, you know, and so I work late shift. I'm coming home on my lake road, my prayer road. And that night, there just could be no more. And I stopped at the lake, and I had a choice to make that night. It's not a shallow choice. It overtook me. I had a choice. Take the van into the lake or pray. There was an absolute. There was nothing else. And I stopped, and I got out of the van, and I had a very loud discussion with God. And I said, this is it. I can't go anymore. I can't stay that one increment ahead of trying to accept no. And I said, you know where she is. I don't know where she is. You do. And I said, so I'm praying very specifically here. You find my daughter, and you reunite me with my daughter, and just get this over with. Or will you please give me the genuine, not just the words, the genuine healing of acceptance, that it's okay, she's fine, it's okay. No, you won't see her again, but it's okay, and that's real. And I said, I'm telling you what, you have till the end of the year to do this. Because that's all I know about me as a human. I'm only going that far. And that was it, and I turned it over in faith. That was my first sincere, that was it. And anyway, the phone call with Mr. Waldo's voice was 2 weeks after my birthday. 2 weeks. So when that voice said that and my heart heard that, it was nothing short of the door of the temple in Israel opening. It was huge because it was this big, it was everything. It was my God saying, yes, child. And when that door opened, the floodgates that was it. And it's been a nonstop miracle unfolding before me. And for me to live in it and for it to touch everyone around me, I'm just sitting back for the ride and I'm loving it, And anyway, after that, and I just, I don't know, guess what? There's hope, and where there's hope, there's yes. And I can't wait. It's like God saying, there's going to be a surprise party for you, and you know about it, but shh. And you can't wait, but you know it's going to happen, And after that, the phone calls flying around, and it was like we're all preparing for this party, and we just know it's going to be yes, And dealing with all those inner dynamics. But then it's funny, but it's just so part of this miracle. My best friend Susan and I, in the middle of all of this, it's getting close, and by that time Donna Poole told me her life's name was Jennifer Lynn. And that was such a easy transition of the heart from Kathy to Jennifer Lynn, because her aunt, Chris's sister's name is Jennifer. And she's the one that said, well, when they took her away from you, they took her away from everybody. And my son's middle name is Lynn, so it's Jennifer Lynn, So it went very easy. Anyway, Susan and I went to see Titanic. I had to get out, we had to go, right? And she's like, Titanic, okay, we'll go see the big T. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, the movie starts. And I didn't know who that little young actor is. I'd never seen him before. Well, it was the most miserable 3 hours I ever spent in my life. And I'm sure it's a wonderful movie, and I'm glad it won all the Academy Awards. But for me, what happened was when that actor turned around on the screen that's like 30 feet long, it was Chris at 16. And I hadn't dealt about that. I refused to all those years. But there he was. And up from my soul came all this issue about Chris. And so this is what I was dealing with for 3 hours, and look at the story. Oh, So anyway, so driving home that night, you know, I'm dealing with all this and leaning on my best friend Susan and talking about it. And we get home that very night, and my son says, well, thank God you're home. I'm tired of answering the phone. Here's a message from this person, that person. And then somebody named Chris called from Macon, Georgia, that very night. And I'm like, Chris, you know? And all I could do is keep holding my hands up like, God, I can't believe the ride you have me on. You know, this is like an e-ticket. This is a superlative, you know. And when I heard Chris, even though, you know, it's this man voice and I haven't seen him, it was Chris. And it's, hey, girl, well, where's our daughter? You know, and just to know, oh my God, and I get to say, and here's your dad too, and all this full circleness and everything, you know. And so it's like it's an ultimate reunion. Today, I get to walk up and off the plane comes my daughter, my mother's granddaughter, my sister's niece, Chris and Mai's child, all that was good, you know. And then to know just in a couple more days, I'll be sitting in my house and there'll be Chris and my daughter, and they're both alive and they're both well, and all three of us are alive and well. And somebody's finally screaming out, there is something bigger than all the hell on earth. There is God. And it's all okay. And everybody gets to put everything in the past correctly, and my daughter knows. She begins to be handed all the pieces of who she is and from whence she came. And I get to see our grandchild, and she's so cute over the phone. She said, I have crooked little fingers. And I went, I know. You know, and Chris, like he said, well, you know, no little girl can have too many grandparents. You know, and I'm like, I know. And on top of that, we're nice people. You know. And I've talked to, so anyway, came the big day, backing up.
I'm going to want you to take us over to where you were standing when this happened, or where you were when this happened.
The phone
Tell
call.
us about that, yeah. But before we do that, I just want to get a couple.
Well, this was so weird. See, this is another one of those spooky, this isn't for this, but, you know, how would these people know this? They told her that her father was 6 foot tall. Chris was not 6 foot tall at 14, 15, 16. I didn't even know Christopher was 6 foot tall. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but he is now.
I'm like, how did you know this? You've known all along.
Okay, just tell me how old you were and how old Chris was.
I was just about to turn 16, and Chris was 14 when we met at Teen Club. Best little harmonica player in Adelphi, Maryland. Yeah.
And then how old were you when you gave birth?
I got pregnant in October, so I guess it was a birthday baby. I had just turned 17. And Chris was about to be 16. So, young. Younger than what young is now at that age, you know. So.
What, tell me about naming her. You named her.
Oh, the name. Well, I wanted to name her after my mom. You know, my mom's name is Kathleen. But I can remember the pressure of the time, that if I was already catching all this flack about being an unwed mother and I'm having an illegitimate bastard child, that would just be how dare I even name this child, much less after your mother? So I got as close as I could. So I named her Catherine Ann. Kathy. You know, and I just thought that was a very beautiful name. Catherine Ann Mortimer. You know, and on the birth certificate information, I put Chris's name, you know, my name. Yeah, I wasn't real sure in my naivete what her last name was. I didn't care. But she was Catherine Ann. Mm-hmm.
And then you decided to adopt
Mm-hmm.
a son later.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell me that, you know.
Well, my husband and I were together for almost 20 years, and we'd lost 2 children, and so I couldn't have any more children, and I wanted to be a active mother, you know, and David and I didn't have any children, and so we went the route of adoption, you know, which was a whole, again, that dual, David and I are doing this, but back here there's like, so this is how this goes. Constantly. This is how you are as a birth mother. So my heart was always there for this third person in the triad, always. And this is where I probably identify with Roz. And we've talked, and that was a wonderful experience, and something I'd thought about for a very long time, that I'd always wanted to do. And the whole process of adoption, when you, as an adopted parent, but I can tell you, and I know Roz can tell you, that the day you see your child, when she saw her daughter, was no different than the day I saw my son. And there's no difference. There's not a heartbeat's difference for these children, or at least there shouldn't be. And there wasn't in my case, and I'm sure there wasn't in Roz's case. And he was a beautiful baby. You know, and he's just, he's always known as I think an adopted mother and father. It was, you do it in increments, you know, that they're special children. And he was right on cue as far as times that this issue would come up in his little life. You know, so right at the same, that research shows you, like when they're little, they want to know. Or when they got into their adolescence, then it comes up again. They can speak up a little bit. And when Luke was real little, we used to call his birth mother the tummy lady. So one day he did come up to me in the kitchen. He's like, well, okay, I think I'm ready to meet the tummy lady now. And I went, well, okay, well, how should we do that? You know, because he knew, he's always known everything I've only known, because that's his to know, whatever that is. And he said, well, I don't really want to meet her. I just want to see her. So we could pack a lunch, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and we could go to her house. We could get behind like a bush or a tree, and then you, because you're bigger and braver than I can, you go knock on the door, then hide with me, and we'll just look at her face, and then we'll go home. I just want to see her face. So besides having these precious moments with him, I'm thinking about Kathy. You know, did she have a tummy lady? Did she have an image? Did she? It's constant. And then being in the dual position I'm in as an adopted parent and a birth parent, how can anyone ask me, like, well, how does this affect my life? It's consuming, you know. It's consuming.
Great. We can move now.
It's a wrap. Thank God, it's cigarette time again. I didn't even start re-smoking again until my birthday last year. Yeah, garlic bread needs to be made. Where am I going?
Well, either way, you should stand first and then sit. That's fine. She'll, okay?
Okay.
So tell me about the most recent search and the big points.
Okay, 5 months ago in October '97, I filed, then again, I was looking to file another waiver and change of address. And that's when I talked to Mr. Waldo, and that ancient door creaked open of maybe. And then from there, it moved along as fast as just rice paper burning, just whoosh. I got to talk to Donna Poole, who is a volunteer person who does the reunion, does the let's go see if we can put this together. And I called her every week. I bugged her to death. I later found out my daughter said, "My God, I'm so glad I found you. Your mother's been bugging the hell out of me," you know. Put her feet to the fire. I called her almost weekly, you know, and I ran out of excuses to call, you know, like, well, I was just had you on my mind, that kind of thing. Anyway,
Where was that? That was the county, right?
right, in Landover, Maryland. And finally, one day she called me, and being in the social work field, I know that they don't call you for just no reason. And she says, well, I think I found her. I think I have all the pieces together. And then she said, would you like to know what her name is? As if you're going to say no. As if I'm going to say, oh, well, no, I don't need to know that. And that's when she said, it's Jennifer Lynn. And that fell easy, you know. And then there goes my long-distance bill again. Her name's Jennifer Lynn, and the whole world gets to... So everybody was up to speed with me. And then I didn't hear anything. I would call, and she was always in a meeting or whatever, because that's all you had. And I think she understands that when you have something, she's the vortex at that time. You're the only contact I have. So it's you I'm calling. It's you I'm hounding. You know, where is she? Anyway, then we run up to March 10th. And I'm just sitting here having coffee. I'm sitting in my little lady strato lounger, and I'm having coffee, and my son's in his room, and the phone rings. Excuse me, let me back up. Cut. I'm sitting in my strato lounger, March 10th, and I'm all by myself at a day just like any other day, and the phone rings. And Donna Poole says, what are you doing? I said, I'm sitting here having my third cup of coffee, and all of a sudden this familiar thing came up in me. You know, they don't call for nothing. And it was very quick. She said, well, I want you to stay off the phone because within 10 minutes, your daughter's going to be calling you. So be sure to have a paper and a pencil in your hand. Like, you know, that's real. And be sure to ask her anything you want to ask her. She says, I have to go now. And hung up. And how do you prepare for the end of a journey, a quest of a lifetime, in 10 minutes? Is there preparation? Is there anything? And my God, I'm by myself. There's me and a dog and a bird and a cat and a fish, and we're, you know, my son's not here. And I immediately called my best friend. I can't remember what I said, but it was something like, get over here, my daughter's calling. And I was absolutely numb. I don't remember thinking about what am I going to say, what is she, I don't remember thinking anything. I was all emotion. And then the phone rang. And I didn't know if I could answer it. And I could hear myself screaming, pick the phone up, you know. And I answered the phone. And this lovely, mature voice said, very professionally, is this Linda? I said, yes. And she says, well, my name is Jennifer Lynn Page, and I'm your, and I said, you're my daughter. And all I kept saying is, for God's sakes, God, let me breathe, you know. And it just rolled. And we went everywhere for 3 hours. And it was like your heart that was just dry and barren in the desert was just filling and filling and filling and filling and filling and pumping and healthy and wonderful and whole. And we went everywhere. And there's not a word in the English language, in any language on earth that's human, that can tell you what that is. And it hasn't stopped since. And I had a voice. I had a voice. And she was alive. And she was okay. And she wanted to know me. She wanted to see me. And all that wonderful connectiveness was like talking to myself. You know, and I just can't wait. I cannot wait, because within a couple hours, I'm going to be standing there, and my daughter is going to meet her mother. And these arms that have been light for as long as she's been away, and been as light as long as my heart has been heavy. And those wonderful little crooked hands are going to be in my little crooked hands. And I do not have to spend the rest of my life not whole. And I don't care if she chooses to live in Tibet the rest of her life. I know where she is. I know she's fine. I know she knows me. I know she knows who she is. And by God, there's phone lines in Tibet, and I can always say, hey, baby, how are you? And I will know she's okay. And that's happening today, and I cannot wait. I just can't wait. And I just hope my makeup stays on my face when I metamorphose this wonderful, beautiful woman I'm going to be at the airport, because right now I feel like hell. So, okie dokie. It's going to be okay. So, and anyway, since then we've talked countless hours on the phone. Matter of fact, I wish there was a 1-800 number to give you to say, please contribute to Linda's phone bill. Hours and hours and hours. And then she sent me the most priceless thing, because I had a voice. She took the time and the love and the care to put together a photo album and 4 tapes of music. That's the part where I say it's like talking to myself. Because the music didn't come like with an explanation, but I got it. I got it. I know exactly what she meant. But anyway, I was sitting in this chair, and I knew that she was going to send it. And I watched the mail car pull up and toot the horn. God, I don't even remember ever being dressed normally since March 10th. Anyway, I scrambled up the hill, past the dog, and the mail lady hands me this package. And I was so overwhelmed, and I said, oh, do you know what this is? Do you know what you just brought me? And she's like, well, a package. And I'm like, no, this is my daughter. This is my daughter. This is my daughter's pictures. And she went, And I went, no, you don't understand. And I'm like blurting all this out, and she's crying. And I'm like, yes, that's what it is. Thank God it got here. And I'm carrying it down the hill, almost like incense into the temple, you know, like, and again, I'm sitting here alone. I don't know why. And I unwrapped this book. And the music's playing that Jennifer sent. So I'm in a very precious moment by myself, you know. And, oh, okay. Anyway,
Camera rolling. Yeah.
yeah.
It's been something that obviously you've been thinking about for a very long time, right?
It has been, but in the last couple years, it's been more diffused for me. It's been not a necessary thing to be told, whereas a few years back, a large portion of my life, I would make it known to people that I'm adopted, I'm adopted, I'm adopted. And for the last maybe 2.5 years, that the people that know me down here now, I just moved back down here from Northern California, don't know that. So when I said, oh my God, this miraculous thing has happened, my birth mother has found me, they're like, oh, I didn't even know you were adopted. So then we had to go through that whole thing first. And it's just been, oh, I've told it probably 100 times already.
Yeah, but it must, so at a certain other point of your life, it was something you talked about a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Can you just tell me your name?
My name is Jennifer Page.
And I'll just do this all in one sentence.
Okay.
Your name and how old you are, just to warm up.
Okay.
And tell us where we are and where do you live?
Okay. My name is Jennifer Lynn Page, formerly Jennifer Lynn Shapiro. I changed my name about 9 years ago, from Shapiro to Page. I live in beautiful sunny Southern California, and it's a little town called West Hills. And this is my home that I was raised in for the last 30 years. We moved here from the East Coast, almost 31 years now. I'll be 32 in July. I'm sorry.
Felicia.
You're so
She's curious. So, what are you up to these days? It's your mom. That's great. They're so excited.
I know.
What are you up to these days? What have you been doing in the last few years in terms of your career? And
Wait, hold on. You want to hold for planes?
we do want to hold for planes, and we do want to hold from dogs on occasion.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just talk a little bit about what you've been up to in the last few years, where you came from. I know you moved, and what you've been doing with your career and stuff like that, and your little girl.
All right. Well, I gave birth to my little girl 11 years ago. She'll be 12, actually, August 7th this year. I just recently moved back down here from Walnut Creek. I lived there for 7 years.
Can we just say, when you say here, you name the town
Okay.
that we live in, because we might not know the here, what it is. So just to start again and make sure you include where we live, where you live.
Okay. I just moved back down here to Southern California in West Hills a year and a half ago. I lived in Walnut Creek, California for the past 7 years prior to that. I've been a cosmetologist for 12 years. And I have a gorgeous daughter. Her name's Felicia, who I gave birth to 11 years ago. So it's been quite a full life. Right now, where I'm doing hair is in Santa Monica, California, and that's on 4th and Broadway. It's a great day spa. It's probably the top 5 day spas in California. And I'm also an educator for Redken, which I go around to different salons and in-store classrooms and teaching other cosmetologists hair and color. And it's incredible.
How was life here in West Hills growing up? And can you tell us a little about your family life growing up here in Southern California?
Well, in the earlier years, it's a wonderful family. I have two older brothers, Wayne and Brian, and it was great. We traveled, around America, different states, traveled across the country.
Jennifer, don't go too far.
That way? Okay. Because that's another thing I kind of like.
Yeah.
And she's
yeah.
not too profile, right?
No, she's fine right now,
pretty, okay.
as long as she doesn't scoot that way.
Okay.
Okay. Jennifer, can you just tell me again about where we are in your house and growing up with your mother and father here, who your mother and father are?
Okay. This is the house I grew up in. We've lived here for almost 31 years. We moved out from East Coast, New York area, Washington, D.C., Maryland, to Southern California, right here where we are in West Hills. I have two older brothers, Wayne and Brian, who are great. They're awesome. And it's just a wonderful life I've had, an absolutely wonderful life. We did all sorts of family things. I mean, I'm part of the family. I was never treated any different in the family. They're my brothers. This is my mom, my dad, and it's a complete family. I went to school in this area. It's a Las Virgenes district. Round Meadow, A.E. Wright Middle School, and Calabasas High School. I had challenges growing up, as most any adolescents do, a lot of struggles with certain identities and stuff, but all in all, it was, great, and I am who I am today from all those struggles that I've gone through.
Can you tell me a little about your mother and father that you lived with here for a while, their names and...
Well, my mother's name is Rosalind, Roz, I've said less formal, and my father's name is Phil. They were born in New York, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. They're great people. They're great people. Their strength on and teaching me the things that they've needed to teach me through my life have been tremendous. And I guess you don't realize that until you're older, and then you're going to look back and go, "Wow, look what I got from my parents." My dad had worked for Northrop for many years, for like 25 years, and the business part of it, business economics. He's a great guy. He likes to go on adventures with the Sierra Club and do some camping, and he's a handyman. He likes to fix things, and then we like to call the repair guy in to fix things later. And my mom is, she's great. She's right now she's a caregiver for an elderly woman who needs some companionship, and very compassionate woman, and very strong and resilient woman. And a lot of my strength is from her.
Were you a tough kid?
Very
your
much
mother?
so. Very much so. We had a lot of power struggles, a lot of, this was going on, especially from like the age of 11 through the age of 17, 18 years old. And I'm trickling into my 20s. I can look back and say I was struggling with my identity of who I am, and though I was treated exactly the same as my brothers, I felt... That's okay.
And 3.
Well, growing up with my brothers, and I think a lot of the struggle was this biologically, there's some characteristics that were fighting with my parents' genetic characteristics, and that was a struggle. That was a struggle because I'm such a free spirit, and I'm very open with everything, and it's like a thought comes in my head, it comes out of my mouth. And on the other hand, they're more conservative in that respect, and kind of more respectful, a little bit more obedient. And it was funny, just to go off on a little tangent, I have these angel cards one of my very good friends Helen gave me when I moved back down here. And just little angel cards are very inspirational things, and I said, okay, everyone's going to have to pick an angel card today. We got to find out what we need to survive this and go through this together. And one of the cards that I picked was obedience, and I'm like, and my dad said, it's about time, So I went, okay, Dad, that was great. And also spontaneity, and healing. That's a card I picked today too, and it was quite incredible. So I need that today. And this is what this is all about. Going back to growing up, the conflicts were pretty tremendous, and it was difficult. There was things that I didn't like. I was very rebellious. So when I see a teen go through a lot of stuff I've been through in my life, I go, you just don't want me to be your daughter at that point. It was hard for my mom. One of the ways we won arguments with each other that we just found out through the opening of this miracle that's unfolded before us is we got to brass tacks of how we won an argument with each other, and how I won an argument for like a few years, from like the age of 11 actually to the age of 17, was, you're not my mother. You know, why did you ever adopt me? You don't love me. And I knew that was the only thing I could ever say to her that would like win the argument, to stop her, to say, okay, this is what you're doing to me, I don't like it, and boom, I'm going to stop you right now. And what she would do was not show me her love. She would not cry in front of me. She said, I will not win. I will not let her see me cry, because that means that she would win.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with your husband and your daughter?
Well, I met Gary, not formally introduced. He was riding his motorcycle, and I went, wow, who's that guy? I want to meet him. Who knows his name? And I met him, finally. I was introduced. And it was about 2 weeks before my 16th birthday. And we came together at times of our lives, now that I can look back on it, you know, retrospective, where we were feeding off each other's emotions of where he came from in his life and where I came from, and with huge emptiness, you know, inside, and basically looking, okay, I want you to feel this for me, and I want you to feel that for me, and it was just a struggle, a real big struggle. And we were together 4 years, and he actually proposed marriage to me the day I graduated beauty school, which was tremendous, and went to pick out the ring and all that, and we were married for a little less than 2 years. It just got too much of it just didn't feel right. I felt very much imprisoned at that time, and that it wasn't working, and I just like shot out into my life of how this would be in my life. And I couldn't go through that. I felt like I was just very much in prison. There was abuse there, and we've talked about it since then. And when we were driving around in a truck, I remember this just a few years ago, and he said, I never knew why that happened, because I never ever did that to anybody else. And it was a real good closure. It was like an understanding where it wasn't that he didn't love me, it was just where he came from his life, and where I came from in tolerance and acceptance of certain things that happen in a negative way. I tolerate a lot, and I practice adaptation very well, and so it's okay. I mean, we don't have like a friendship, like we talk every day, but we're very cordial with each other, and there's no hatred there. I mean, that's healed. So Felicia really didn't experience her mom and dad together that long of time. I don't think she really remembers. I mean, I left when she was about 2 years old.
So you've been divorced for a number of
For
years now?
9 years, I think it's been, since it was finalized September 28th,
Can you just say a sentence
1989.
that, you know, we were married for a certain number of years, and then we were divorced how many years ago? Just a clear sentence of that.
Okay. We were married, we were together for a total of 6 years. The last 2 years we were married, and we were divorced in 1989.
And Felicia was born when?
Felicia was born August 7th, 1986, at 8:21 in the evening.
Okay, we can pause a second here.
This is my parents' dog, and there's a cute story on this. He was found by a woman and her friend in a trash can in Mexico as a little puppy, almost ready to die. And they saved him. They took him to a vet in Mexico, and they made him all better and gave him a little bit of, like a little sleepy pill so they can take him across the border. Oh, God, it's going to be on the TV. Oh, wow. And he is just a love. He is like the prince of this house. He has his own raincoat, sweater. He loves taking walks. He loves having treats. He's a love. His personality is just incredible. Come here, Chico. And he's my dad's favorite friend. He loves my dad. He bugs him. He'll stick his nose on his lap and say, pay attention to me.
How long have you had a dog? That's cool.
Good boy.
Alicia, how's life with Chico?
Good.
Will Chico do his sitting up thing?
Oh, yeah, well, let me,
No, I'll do it.
okay, well, wait a minute.
No, you have to just tell him to sit.
No, you
Sit.
want to, sit, Chief.
Sit.
Atta boy, but now you got your behind to the...
Chico, sit. Come here. No, sit.
There he is. He's like a little kangaroo.
He's not trained to be an actor,
Sit.
so.
Sit.
I think he could do those Taco Bell commercials, though.
Oh, get on top of it.
Yeah. Because he loves food.
Okay, that's enough.
Name, number, age, just to get it clean inside, because we have no airplanes and stuff like that. Are we rolling?
We are rolling.
We're rolling. Wow.
Jennifer, can you give me your name and your age and where we live? Okay.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Lynn Page, formerly Jennifer Lynn Shapiro. Those are my parents' last name. Page is a name I chose when I was about 13, and I had it implemented in my life when I was about, through my divorce, when I was divorced from my daughter's father. Right now we're in my parents' house. It's a house I was raised in. We're in Southern California, which is inside in Southern California.
Right.
Should I do the whole thing?
It's okay. You can
Okay.
just say where you're my parent.
We're in my parents' home.
There's a little squeak.
Squeak,
Chair.
sorry.
Okay.
Are you sure you want to do this chair?
You know what?
Breathe.
Thank you.
Good. Jennifer, just tell us where we are right now.
We are in my parents' home. It's a house I was raised in for the past 30 years, and where that home is in Southern California, in a town called West Hills.
Beautiful. That's.
You have Chico running around?
Take his...
That's
I'll
okay.
take his collar off. I'll take his collar
Yeah.
off.
Chico.
Pausing for Chico.
We're rolling.
I'm curious to know when you knew you were an adopted child.
My parents have always integrated that in my life. I have never not known. It's something I was chosen, I was picked. I was very special, you know. You're adopted, and that's how they gave me the distinction of adoption, that I was chosen rather than my two brothers who were birth children of my mom and dad.
Okay, can you say that again, but include adoption in the first part of it? Because when I ask the question, it's not going to be on air. Okay, so I'll ask again. When, Jennifer, or how did you know you were an adopted child?
Well, how I knew I was adopted is not really a distinction in my life of when I was told, because it was always there. It was ever present in my life. I remember being told how special I was being adopted, that adopted children are very special because they are picked, like hand-selected, and chosen. So, of course, I took that for all it was worth, and I would brag about it. You know, I'm chosen and you're not, you know. I was picked, I'm special, you're not. And I actually had friends of mine. I remember one girlfriend of mine, Andrea Bernholtz, who actually went to her parents and asked if she was adopted and was very upset when they said no. So that's how special I felt about being adopted.
So, it didn't really affect you that much as a child? Do you recall it having an impact?
As a child growing up until the age of, I would say, until I was about 9. I think when I was 9 it affected me more. But it was an absolute normal upbringing. I mean, with my brothers and following them around and adoring them, adoring my brother Brian. I would follow him around all the time. And my brother Brian is 2 years older than me. He was a little thug of the neighborhood, him and his friends. And I always wanted to be with him. I always wanted just my older brother. And Wayne is 5 years older than me, and he's the peacemaker of the family. So he's the calm in the storm, so to speak. But when I was 9 is when I can look back now and see that I was very affected when somebody left me. I felt they were leaving me. I distinctly remember a time right before my 10th birthday. We were visiting on the East Coast in New Jersey. All our relatives are from the East Coast. We were there for a month, and my dad had to fly back for business, come back for business 2 weeks early. And that really affected me. That affected me like he was leaving me. And I became quite arrogant and obstinate and very angry at that. I remember that, and caused a lot of havoc in the last 2 weeks being there. So.
Pause for a second. Doing it, but I just want you to describe your
Okay.
How bad is it? Because why don't you just,
Uh-huh.
you were already talking a little bit about it, but a little more description about your family, tell your adopted family. You know, your brothers, your sisters, your mother, your father. I mean, your brothers, your mother, and your father.
I mean, it's like my family is very, I say, I can't say ordinary because I find they're extraordinary just because, you know, I love them so deeply. And I'm going to cry because just saying that. I guess it comes a point in your life when you look back and you really appreciate where you come from. And you look at the positive more than the negative. And I am definitely blessed with a family that took me in. I don't even want to say took me in, that adopted me and gave me a life where maybe it would be so different if somebody else adopted me. I have so many wonderful memories of different, like, Indian Scout outings and being in the Bluebirds and traveling with them, going to San Francisco, going to SeaWorld, going to Disneyland, just doing so many wonderful things families do. Traveling cross country to the East Coast in a station wagon. What hell that is when you're a kid. Counting how many blue cars or red cars or yellow cars you see on the road. So it's the unity of family. It was awesome growing up.
Are your brothers adopted?
No, my brothers are not adopted. My brothers are my mother and father's birth children. But there's something unique about that. Before my parents got married, while they were dating or engaged, I believe, and maybe my mom can tell more about that, she made a firm decision of saying, okay, Phil, we are going to have 2 boys, but if we don't have a girl, we're going to adopt a girl, because I want a girl. So as it turned out, my mom had 2 boys, 2 miscarriages, and she said, okay, we're adopting a girl. So that's where that came from.
She knew. That's what she wanted.
She knew she wanted a girl. So she has me. And boy, did she have me. I'm a handful. I'm more than a handful.
Why were you more of a handful?
Very outspoken child. Very, very exuberant. Very talk back child. I said what came to my mind, and I didn't care the outcome.
In that way, were you different from your brothers?
Yes, yes. I think I was less obedient than them, in the sense of not obedient as a negative, but I was very rebellious to what my parents, whether it be discipline or you have to do this, and I was, no, I don't want to do this. This is not something I want to do right now. So as my brothers, they were very, in my opinion, how I look back and say they were very A-line. They were just, I will follow what you say. I mean, yeah, they gave them some struggles as well, but I was a complete rebel.
When did you start thinking about your birth parents? Do you remember when, or when did you start wondering about that?
Well, it's always a wonder when I think about who my birth parents are. I think that memories of where that came from, or of course being adopted, that's going to stem, you're going to get that from being adopted, of just that unknown. But I remember being in my room when I was 7, and I would always love to dance in my room and put my Fisher-Price stereo on and play my 45s. And there's one tape of Barbra Streisand that I would listen to, the People album. There's all sorts of different songs in there that I love. And so my fantasy was Barbra Streisand being my mom. I wanted her to be my mom. I said, oh, God, that would be just heaven on earth if she was my mother. And I would dance around the room and make up Broadway plays in my mirror and be Barbra Streisand's daughter in that respect, So that was a fantasy. There was my fantasy. Other wonderment was just who they looked like, but that came later on. But that was my first fantasy of who my mother was.
So when you were around 7, is that?
Yeah, when I was around 7.
Let's try that again, just in a more concise
Okay.
way. And you can try to use my question some way
Okay.
in the answer, so it's a clear beginning.
Okay.
When did you start thinking about your birth parents?
When I started thinking about my birth parents, the clearest memory that comes to mind, or the first memory, was when I was about 7 years old. And I would be in my room by myself listening to Barbra Streisand's music. And I would create theatrical plays and Broadway musicals out of her People album. And I've always adored Barbra Streisand, and I went, okay, I want her to be my birth mother. That could be a possibility. It could be anybody, but gosh, heaven on earth to be, to have my birth mother be Barbra Streisand. Because look, I can sing, I can dance, I know her music, and that was the first memory that I can come up with.
So did you have other thoughts throughout your life of what your mother might be like, or who she would be, or any pictures in your mind? What do you think she was like?
Well, other thoughts of who my birth mother, birth father would be, I don't have a real clear picture on that because I had such a rounded family, and all my, just growing up, of just life, of going to school, of, worrying about, what existence is, and what is death, what is life, why am I here? So that really took precedence over of wondering who they were, or who my birth parents looked like, or why do I have this nose, or why do I have these ears, or why is my hair color the way it is, and I think the only thing I thought of at growing up in my mid-adolescence, like from age 10 to about age 13, is I wonder if my mother has green eyes. And where did those come from? And now I know that it's a combination of Hazel, and she has hazel eyes, Linda does, my birth mom, and my birth father has crystal blue eyes. So the union of that has created my eyes. So.
When did you start thinking about looking for your birth parents or your birth mother?
I've always wanted to look for my birth parents, my birth mother and father. I never wanted to just look for one and not the other. It's always been there. I've always talked about it since I was, I think, 13 years old. It's always been in my life. I've always talked about when I'm 18, I'm going to find my birth parents, or then I started going, when I'm 20, I'm going to find my birth parents, and then I went to, when I'm 23, I'm going to find my birth parents. And I believe what stopped me from that was that rejection aspect of it. I thought more negative than positive. I looked at the possibility of it being no, that's not going to happen. Or their response would be no, like my birth mother would say, no, I don't want anything to do with her. That's part of my life that no one else knows about, and I want to keep it that way. So that truly stopped me from ever looking, because I don't think I could ever handle that rejection.
Were there other hurdles in the process of looking for that?
There's many hurdles in my life to look for that. I would think, when I've met a lot of adoptive people in my life, adoptees, and listened to their pains or trials and tribulations in their life. And a lot of things I've heard was negative, of how angry they were, or how, more how angry they were, and not looked at the positive of, this person gave you a better life by making that decision. And so I never had an anger about being adopted. It's always, there's always been that mystery of who I am all through my life. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? But I think even if I wasn't adopted, I'd have that mystery anyway. I've come to believe that, talking to many people, and throughout my career, being in contact with many people throughout my career. So the question's gone.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
being adopted hasn't affected my life growing up in my early adolescence in a tremendous way because of how it was introduced in my life. As it was introduced, I have never not known I was adopted. And it was said in such a generous, gracious way that it just was part of my life. It wasn't there was no major distinction of being adopted and this family. I mean, they're my brothers and my mom and my dad, so there was never a disconnection in the earlier years. The disconnection came in my preteen era, which is a whole era of its own, where I was so different from my brothers in behavior that there was a lot of trauma with that. There was a lot of aggravation. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of anger because I was very rebellious, running away from home and just causing havoc of, language, using not very nice words or appropriate words used towards your parents. A lot of stress on that. And I think I can look back now, though I didn't distinguish it then, that it had to do with being adopted. It had to be doing with your identity of not knowing who you are. I think part of my struggle with that was, okay, yes, I'm part of this family, but I'm also genetically different, and I have genetic characteristics that are different than my parents' genetic characteristics. And that was a real struggle, a lot of beating heads together of, I want to do this now. I was a very appreciative listener, and I wanted entertainment, and I wanted fun, and I felt that I wasn't having that much fun. I was being stopped from having fun.
Well, did you think your folks were tolerant or understanding of that state that you were in?
I don't think we all knew in a language of its own. I don't think we put that on there. I don't think we put that language of, oh, well, okay, she's genetically different, so let's treat her different, or understand that. I don't think there was that much understanding there. I think now, at this present day, there's more understanding of that.
The whole process has been a growing process.
This whole process has been a growing experience, just a life experience. Things that happen in life is separate of being adopted. It's like a different entity. This is life. So being adopted hasn't played a conscious role of your daily life's existence and what you're going through, of going to, elementary school, going to junior high school, going to high school, and interfacing with people and talking with them and getting to know them. But I can say now that this is closed with locating my birth mother, her locating me actually, has filled a spot in me, a place that I never really knew existed. But it's like, I'm human now. I have come to this humanness and relatedness with where I come from. Whereas before, I've always felt like I was observing life, observing different groups in life. Even when I was a younger kid, I felt very, not a non-participant, or, well, possibly a non-participant. Like I was always like an outsider of sorts. I was always the observer in some things. I wouldn't like totally jump into something and give it my all. I would be like very hesitant and kind of sit back and watch, just to try and figure out, okay, well, their mannerisms, I think that's what it is. Wow, that just came to my mind. People's mannerisms, how they did things, how they related to other people, and the genetics, where they come from, they know. I don't know where I come from. So I think that maybe is why I observed so much in my life and didn't jump in or didn't feel connected in any particular group that I've been in.
Have you and your parents come up with some new language to talk about this stuff?
I think the language that we've been discussing, this new miracle unfolding, has brought in an openness, an authentic way of sharing that before was maybe a little hard to do, given my rebellion, my rebellious years, and all that hurt and anger and sadness that was there then. This is a huge opening for the closeness that myself, my mother, and my father have wanted we've just been too scared to have, in fear of being hurt or taken advantage of or used or all those negatives.
Okay, now we're going to get some more like practical, tactical stuff
Okay.
about the searching. When did you start that process? Can you give me a narrative of, how you were found and how you started your search to hook up? Can you give me the narrative?
When the time came for me to actively participate in looking for my birth parents was about 2 years ago. But the story began 7 years ago when I was in a salon working up in Walnut Creek, California, which is Northern California. I met a woman who was getting her hair done by another stylist. Her name was Carol Rock. And I remember her name, and I'm very surprised that I remember her name. But she was very interested in adoption. I believe she had an adoptive daughter herself. And she gave me a number for the Reno Soundex reunion, and that's in Nevada. And she wrote it on the back of her business card, and I've had it for 7 years. And I've kept it. And when I moved back down here to Southern California, from Northern California, I went, oh my God, I still have this number. I said, okay, it's time. What are you so afraid of? And there was this transition period where, in my whole life of just living day to day, where I stopped looking at so much of the negative and started looking at the possibility of having it positive. And all I did before, for the past 10 years, or all my whole life, is looked at the negative aspect of being rejected and not looked at the possibility of, well, there could be a yes. There could be this whole openness that you don't even know about. It could be 50 this or 50 that, The percentage is right down the middle. So let's just do it. So I called up the Reno Soundex reunion, and they sent me an application and registration form. And how they do that is you fill out the information that you know, and then you become registered, and then they make matches. They link up, dates, places, states, cities, welfare agencies, and that's the only way they make a reunion. The only influence I think that played a part in is just my openness to have this happen. Since November, the beginning of November of '97, I've started a classroom. I've participated in this classroom work of living my life fully. It's Landmark Education, and they have a curriculum for living and who you're being in your life and creating possibilities. And I'm on my last set of my curriculum right now, and that made a clearing for this to happen. I look at that as this language that I've learned in making distinctions in my life of who I'm being and my accountability in my life. This is happening. It's unfolded and it started happening just like that.
So what happened, again, tell us that you had a friend at the salon of Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
She gave you a card. Just really concise, because I can piece it all together. Let's pause. Can you just summarize a story about the process that you took in the search?
When I more actively wanted to search for my birth parents, about 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I met a woman by the name of Carol Rock who talked with me about adoption. And how I met her, it was in a salon I worked in up in Northern California in Walnut Creek. And we talked really in depth for 45 minutes to an hour about my story of what I know about being adopted and her story about being an adopted mother. And she said, oh, you have to call this number and register in the Reno Soundex reunion in Nevada. And they link up people all the time, and you register with them, and you sign papers and all the information that you have, and they make links. And that would be a perfect access for you to find your birth parents. So she says. And she wrote the number on the back of her business card, and gave it to me, and I was so excited. That, oh, God, that's great, that's wonderful, that's awesome. And I never did anything about it. And when I moved back down here to my parents' house a year and a half ago in Southern California, all of a sudden this card popped up out of nowhere. I was looking through things and I went, oh my gosh, I still have this card. After all my travels up north, I still have this card. And I basically threw the hat over the wall and called them up and said, what do I need to do? And she said, well, just give me your name and your address and we'll send you the registration forms. So they did. I waited. And I have this way of like stopping the excitement just so I can get through my daily life. And so I didn't think of anything of it until they mailed it back to me, mailed the registration forms and the information that I need to give to them. So I filled it out. It took me about a week to fill it out and put all my information down and mailed it back in. It took me about a week actually to mail it in. So it took about a 2-week process for me to actually actively do something with that information I had in front of me. And how Reno Sound X Reunion works is you give them the information, and then they, type it into their huge computer system. It's like this huge internet, I'm sure now. It's all linked up to the World Wide Web and such. And they make links with birth dates and places and everything like that. And then they will contact you. So it's been about a year and a half ago is when I did it. So I haven't heard anything from them. I never heard anything from them. So I was just waiting patiently.
Okay. Were there other ways that you searched? Or did you do any other searches?
The other ways or other information that I've obtained through the past, say, 10 years of how to search for birth parents or search for a person, people I've met in my life. I met a gentleman up north who was adopted and had they had the huge reunion. Blah.
Start again.
Okay.
So another way.
Blah, blah, blah.
Okay. That was good. Blah. Okay. All right. Other ways that I've searched or have found information to search or different accesses is people I've met in my life. And I met a man up north who was adopted and was reunited with his birth parents or birth mother, I believe. I don't know about his birth father. And he contacted that and had information through ALMA, which is also another group that reunites people through information. And he gave me all this support and all these papers you fill out for medical records, the welfare offices and all that. And he even actually made me a file and put personal history on it. And I still have that file with all those papers inside of it and all those forms and a copy of my birth certificate and all the stuff. So it's right there. And I've probably written in my lifetime, in the past 10 years, 10 or more letters to Prince George's County Welfare Agency in Maryland, and they've never been sent. And still that fear stopped me from sending that. I go, okay, no, But I still have copies of the letters that I wholeheartedly intended to send, but just scared half to death at a reply.
Can you tell me that last bit, but tell me where Prince Charles, is that a county?
Okay. Prince George's County in
How
Maryland.
How did you know about that place?
Oh, okay, yeah, because here's another information.
No idea.
The information that I've had in my life about, the limited information, I should say, that I've had about being adopted is I was born in Washington, D.C. I was adopted through Prince George's County Social Services, and that's in Maryland. I was also told that my birth mother was in a place called Florence Crittenton Maternity Home. She was there during her pregnancy, like halfway through her pregnancy, and that she took care of me about a week and a half after I was born. So with that information, she was 5'3", I was also told that, and that he was about 6 foot tall, and he had blonde hair. And it was like a Catholic Protestant background. That's the information I had. So.
Let's pause. Is that wrestling getting you too much? Upstairs?
The wrestling?
That's huge.
Those are the facts you knew. Can you to say that again?
Elaborate it, yeah.
You don't have to elaborate, just as concise.
Because there's other stuff to it that I haven't said.
Okay.
All the information that I know. Do you want me to
Yeah,
just?
let's do that. What information did you gather about your adoptive parents?
The information that I've gathered in my life of what we have as information, what my parents have as information, was I was born on July 26, 1966, in Washington, D.C., that my birth mother was in a maternity home called Florence Crittenton Maternity Home and took care of me about a week after I was born. Then I was in a foster home for about 5 months, and my name in the foster home was Catherine Ann Morgan. And then I was adopted through Prince George's County Social Services, or Prince George's County Social Welfare Department, and that's in Maryland. And then my adoptive parents, Roz and Phil Shapiro, adopted me about 5 months old, and the adoption was final of January of '67. And shortly after that, we moved to Southern California, so that was about 30 years ago, almost 31, since I'll be 32 this year.
Good. So you had that information, and that's what you took to, that's what the information you put down on that form that you gave to Rena. Is that true?
So the information, that's the, okay.
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So just say that.
Okay.
Those are the kind of facts that I put on the form.
So having that knowledge, having that information, gave me better, it's more information than a lot of people have that are adoptees.
Okay. Actually, I think we did pretty well on that. Now, I was just doing it for my own head. That's the
Okay.
kind of information that one gets. Was it difficult to get? I heard that you had some information that was. No, that's not true.
That's later on.
Yeah. So you didn't have to do the search for Virginia. Why has all this happened now? What kind of instigated this in the last month or 2 months, or since November? You said, maybe. Is there something that occurred, or why now in your life?
I believe this has happened in my life now at this particular point, is that I'm coming from a place of whole and complete, that I do not need to be fixed, that I'm very happy about who I am and what I am and all my extraordinary being, me being a human being, and being in love with my family, and forgiven and giving that forgiveness of what's happened to me in my life. I've had a lot of altering things that have altered in my life, within relationships with men, within relationships with people, and really setting my boundaries and really having boundaries for the first time in my life. And just really coming from a place of whole and complete. I started courses that I took in 97, November of 97, that has changed the course of my life, has transformed the course of my life to enable me to even come from that stronger place of whole and complete. And just recently, before this reunion has happened, about 3 weeks prior to March 10th, one of my clients, I do hair, one of my clients called up. Let's do that again. But it's because it's like little pieces
Right.
that aren't like fitting,
Well,
because
what you
there's some.
to mention is March 10th, and we have to go there.
Right, exactly, because
March
they have
5th.
no idea.
Right, so we can
of
start
that.
from there. I mean, but you have this other friend. Are you paused? Chris story.
10 years ago, what is...
Jennifer, you said that this is something that you couldn't have done a while back.
I can say about 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to have this in my life. I wasn't willing to really accept love in my life for a long time, since probably 9 years old, and that true love of being loved. And I was always the good giver of love, but oh no, don't worry about me, I'm fine. You know, my self-worth was about like that big of who I was in my life. So through these past 10 years, I can see a change of who I am, of just being needy, but not being needy, because I can never show being needy of that love. And I don't think I really knew that I needed that much love, and that would make me like whole and complete to be able to accept that love in my life. Now, throughout these 10 years, there's been many different transition spots along the way with each relationship I've been in, with each person I've encountered, and only these last 3 years have I been able to have this type of attention on me. Having this level has increased in my life. And that's one of the reasons why this has happened.
Can you give me a chronology of the events that take us to the upcoming reunion with your birth mother and birth father?
How I see this reunion happen, why it happened in my life, how I see this has happened. Let me say that again real quick here.
Can you close that? Yeah, the refrigerator had been started a few years ago, but you weren't really proactive. Can you reflect on a short chronology from maybe beginning of this year that has got us to now, here in April?
Since the beginning of this year, a lot of things have been happening in my life that have been wonderful because I've been I'm causing it to happen, of just who I'm being in my life. And in February, I believe it was the latter part of February, I was contacted by a friend of mine, an acquaintance, about being on a panel, which that panel consists of birth or adoptive, blah, blah, blah.
Let's start again.
Okay.
Yeah, about a couple months ago,
Okay.
a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm. In the latter part of February, a friend of mine, an acquaintance, called me up and asked me to be on a panel, and that panel consists of people that are related to adoption in varying aspects. The people that will be listening to these stories being told are people that cannot have children, that are infertile. And without hesitation, she was trying to explain to me everything that would happen, and I stopped her and I said, I'm there. Oh my gosh, am I so honored to have you ask me to be a participant of such, I have such to contribute of my life, and coming from a place of never being angry about that, and not being aggressive in that, not being like, I need an explanation and I need it now type of feeling about being adopted. So she was very pleased that she said, wow, you said yes so quickly. And I said, well, there's no other response I could say to you but yes.
Was it a good experience?
It was an awesome experience.
It was being part of the panel. So
oh, sorry. Being part of that panel was a very incredible experience. There was probably about 40 people there, some couples, some not there as a couple. And on the panel with myself, there was a birth father, there was a birth grandmother, there was also a couple that just adopted a child 2 years ago, and there was a birth mother who sat next to me. She said, I want to sit next to you. And it was awesome. It was just an incredible experience. And given it was an incredible experience is because March 10th is when I first no, that wasn't it, because there was something before that.
A couple weeks after the panel, I
about
got a letter, right? Wasn't that what happened?
Yeah. About 2 weeks after I was invited to be part of the adoption, About 2 weeks after I was...
I'm sorry.
That's okay. After 2 weeks I'm sorry. 2 weeks after I was invited to be on a panel to speak and share my story about being adopted, on a Thursday night, I came home and, got my mail, and there's an envelope that had a seal of Prince George's County Welfare Services, Maryland, and it was addressed to Jennifer Shapiro. So I'm thinking, wow, okay, since I'm very familiar with Prince George's County, since that's part of the information I've had about being adopted, I started questioning, okay, did I send off one of those letters I never thought I sent that I wanted to search? I was very, like, oh my God, searching my brain. Did I send something off and not remember? And I was very calm, and I started taking my things upstairs to my room, and I just kept staring at the envelope and staring at the envelope. And I opened it up, and inside was just, all by itself, lonely, one business card that again had Prince George's County seal on it, and the name Donna Poole, and the number circled, and in big writing in cursive, please call. And that's how it jumped out at me, please call now, without moment's hesitation. You need to call. That's what I got from that. So I said, okay. I was very calm. I was very calm about it. I didn't have like a shock. There was no shock there because I had that information. And the only two things that I came up with were that, okay, my birth parents are trying to find me. I'd like to cover my bases. So the next thing that happened was, okay, it also could be, in the event of death, please forward this envelope, filled with information about who my birth parents were or are. And so I woke up in the morning. Everything was normal. There was nothing. I didn't want to get too overly excited. I have this wonderful gift from my father, who is a very straightforward guy and very logical and doesn't get too excited about things. So I remained calm through that whole experience that evening, on Thursday evening. And in the morning, got my daughter up and walked her to the bus, which is just 2 blocks up. Came back down and had the card and picked up the phone and called her. Called this Donna Poole. A woman answered the phone, and I said, may I please speak to Donna Poole? And she said, oh, I'm sorry, she's not available. She's not here. I went, oh, okay, when will she be in? On Monday. So I went, oh, okay, thank you very much. I'll call back Monday. And my immediate thought was like, oh, great. You give this information, and then you're not available there to be spoken to. So I had the whole weekend to sit on this. So I consciously made a choice to not really think about it too much, not think about it, and just kind of go through my daily life, where if I thought about it too much, I probably wouldn't be able to work. And so the following Monday, I called again after I dropped my daughter off at the bus, and a woman answered the phone, and I said, may I please speak to Donna Poole? Oh, I'm sorry, she's not in today. And I immediately was like, okay, did you know Friday that she was not going to be here today, because I was told she was going to be here? Oh, well, after 12 o'clock, she called in and said she wasn't going to be here. So her response to me, because I think she thought I was, from an abandonment issue. I guess social service offices handle a lot of abandonment issues or abandonment cases. So she was a bit snippant with me, very kind of. So she said, are you from an abandonment case? And I said, no. I said, I was put up for adoption 31 years ago, and I was contacted by your office. And her whole energy changed. Her voice softened. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, let me, I was going to take a message, and I said, yes, please. My name is Jennifer Page, and formerly Jennifer Shapiro. And I gave my number, and I said, please tell her that I called. So, it's like 5 days later, I finally get a hold of her on Tuesday morning, which is March 10th, a very special day. Again, the same routine of dropping my daughter off at the bus, and I came back, and Donna Poole called and left a message. And I immediately called her. There hasn't been hesitation. The hesitation didn't come until I had my birth mother's number in my hand. That's when the hesitation came. But back to the story. Called her up, said, Donna, may I speak to Donna Poole? This is her. I said, well, my name is Jennifer Page. I'm calling from California. And she just rocketed this information at me. There was no finesse to how she gave this information to me. She said, oh, I'm so glad you called. Your birth mother's been driving me crazy for 2 weeks. So God forbid I never knew I was adopted, because that information would have been like, oh, I'm sorry, you must have the wrong person. But I was overwhelmed with this energy just shooting at my head, oh my gosh, she's been trying to find me. And then she started going off dates of how many times she's tried to find me and how many times she's tried to contact me. And, 1980, 1982, 1987, 1990, 1992, 1997. And I'm sitting there trying to link that in places in my brain, logically, little pieces, puzzle pieces of, oh my God, and I'm just, all of a sudden started just started filling me with this information. But it was almost like I was being detached from it, okay, this is me, this is my life, this is my birth mother who's trying to find me, just trying to make sense of it. Because it was like I said, it was coming to me like this. It was like boom, 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 boom. And she told me details that the last letter that they sent, or request of being reunited with me, it was co-written with my birth father. And to go back in time, my dad made a distinction for me that, don't get too excited,
when you do actively search, because at the time when I was born, he was only 15 years old, and my birth mother was 17. So he said there's quite a possibility that he could have been in the Vietnam War.